This is Riley Holman for GOAZCATS.com alongside Matt Moreno, and we're back with more coverage as Arizona prepares to take on USC this weekend. So the Wildcats have not won at the LA Coliseum since 2009. How do you expect the players to deal with this pressure?
It's one of those things where I think once they get in the game, it won't affect them. But I think they don't mind talking about how much they dislike USC for one, and that's going to play into what you do during the week. And for Arizona, I think once you get out there, it's different. Obviously, you're going to be around family and friends, which I think can impact the game. Some of the players say it doesn't really matter, but I think it does. I think it's one of those things where it could impact the game if you get, just lose focus. And this is one of those games where you're coming off a loss. You need to be focused. You can't have your attention elsewhere. And so it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of comes together. But for one, I think the most important thing is going to be how Khalil Tate comes out, because this is one of those teams that's been the thorn in his side. He wants to do so well against USC. He knows a lot of their players so well. He knows that program so well. But he's not the only one. There's a lot of Khalil Tates on this team who have that same mentality about USC. So I think it's going to impact more about them, leading up to the game as opposed to once they actually get out there and get on the field. But it's definitely a challenge trying to win on the road, and to try and do it out there is a different kind of challenge.
And going off of that, lots of personal connections to the Southern California area. A lot of the guys are from California. How does this impact the game?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be a lot about trying to stay focused, and I think, that's one of the ways that coming off a loss like they did and losing like they did to Washington maybe helps them in a way, because it's almost like how Washington came in here to Arizona Stadium last week, where they have something to prove. They don't want to lose 2 games in a row. You don't want to, definitely don't want to lose a game in the Pac-12 South if you're Arizona. And when talking to the players this week, that's kind of what we heard. It's not necessarily so much that it is USC. It's more that it's a division opponent and someone that they know they need to beat if they want to accomplish their goals. So I think when you take that all into account, there's going to be distraction. There's going to be family. There's going to be cousins and friends and people you haven't talked to in a while who say, hey, can you get me tickets? And that is, it adds to it. But I think once you get in, on the field and you're, out there and getting a chance to kind of do what you do, I think it makes a difference, and you kind of forget about all those other things. But I would be more concerned about just kind of the couple days leading up to the game when they're back home. And I know Kevin Sumlin said some of them will be actually, getting a chance to see their families and go home for a lot of the players. So you worry about that, but I think once you get on the field, it's back to business as usual.
And defensively, this team has been very successful in the fourth quarter, despite the loss with Washington. How do you expect the defense to step up with the Trojans this Saturday?
Well, that'll be the most interesting part, I think, of this game is how the defense performs, because I think kind of what you're going to get from the offense somewhat this time around. But defensively, Arizona just didn't look the same in the second half of the last game as it did, the previous 3. So getting back to that level that they were, against UCLA and Texas Tech and some of these other teams, they need to get back to that. And I think it's going to be important to do that. If they can do that against a team like USC, I think it says a lot about where they're going and where they can go from this point on. But I think the challenge is going to be not letting what happened against Washington happen again against USC, because what we saw take place was that Washington just had more talented players, and in the end that won out. Jacob Eason was able to have a stellar second half, and a lot of their most talented players came to play in that second half and rose to the occasion. If you're Arizona, you want to prevent that from happening with USC, because USC, as we know, has a lot of talent. And for Arizona to prevent what happened here last week, they have to get out to an early lead and continue to try and play from ahead, because I think playing from behind against a team like this or Washington or some of these other teams that have a lot of talent is more difficult. And for Arizona, they don't want to do that. So I think it's going to be about what happens before those games as opposed to what happens in the fourth quarter.
Big Pac-12 South duel between the Trojans and the Wildcats happening Saturday. Matt will be at the game, so stay locked in with us for more coverage and updates as we bring you the latest on the Arizona Wildcats. For GOAZCATS.com, I'm Riley Holman alongside Matt Moreno. Thanks for tuning in.